Recent policy changes in the UK, Canada, and Australia, creating significant headwinds for international students. International students have long been a cornerstone of global education systems, bringing not only substantial economic benefits, but also enriching the cultural and social fabric of host countries. However, recent policy changes in major destinations like the UK, Canada, and Australia are creating significant headwinds for international student recruitment. These changes, driven by economic pressures and shifting public sentiment, are poised to reshape the landscape of international education in 2024 and 2025. Business Council of Australia Chief Executive Bran Black has warned of the potential damage a significant limit on international student numbers could inflict on the Australian economy. "We are playing with Australia's fourth largest export at a time when our economy is on a knife's edge." International students accounted for almost a quarter of all GDP, gross domestic product, growth over the year to March 2024. The sector was worth 48 billion Australian dollars, $32.4 billion in 2023, and employed over 200,000 people. It's 48 billion reasons to think twice before we cut too hard. Economic and social contributions of international students. International students contribute significantly to the economies of their host countries. In addition to paying substantial tuition fees, they spend on living expenses, travel, and other personal expenditures, collectively adding billions of dollars to the GDP. For instance, in Australia, international education is one of the top export sectors, generating significant revenue and supporting thousands of jobs. Beyond the economic impact, international students bring invaluable social and cultural benefits. They enrich the cultural diversity of campuses and communities, fostering a more inclusive and globalized environment. Moreover, many international students contribute to innovation and competitiveness, with numerous successful startups in countries like the US being founded by former international students. As per the Apply Board, in 2018, there were $21 billion US startups with a founder that first came to the US as an international student. Fast forward to 2022, and the number of billion-dollar startups with an international student founder has exploded to 143. Recent policy changes and their impacts. Since mid-2023, the UK, Canada, and Australia have implemented more restrictive immigration policies, making it increasingly difficult for international students to obtain visas. In the UK, the previous administration removed most dependents' rights to accompany international students and considered restricting the graduate route, which provides work rights for international students. Canada introduced a 2-year cap on new study permits, while Australia increased visa application fees and financial requirements. These policy changes are largely driven by economic pressures, such as rising living costs and housing shortages, coupled with declining public support for immigration. Governments are prioritizing reducing migration over the economic benefits that international students bring, aiming to address domestic concerns about resource allocation and social integration. In 2022, Global Affairs Canada, GAC, reported that international students had a substantial economic impact on Canada, contributing about CDN $31 billion, $23 billion to the country's GDP, equivalent to 1.2% of the total GDP that year. Additionally, international students' expenditure in Canada accounted for 23% of the country's service exports to other nations in 2022. The majority of this spending, 97%, was attributed to long-term international students, with a significant portion coming from Indian students, who represent more than 40% of the international student population in Canada. According to a report by the Economic Times of India, Indian students from Punjab alone contributed approximately $8 billion to the Canadian economy in 2023. Decline in student interest. Research indicates a significant decline in student interest for these destinations. Demand for on-campus bachelor or master programs in Canada and the UK began to decline sharply from February 2024. This trend is pushing students to consider alternative destinations like the US, Germany, Italy, and Austria, which are perceived as more welcoming and stable. Despite the overall decline, the UK has seen a recent uptick in interest, possibly due to optimism following the election of a new Labour government. This highlights the dynamic nature of international education and the significant impact of political changes on student mobility. In the UK, the economic benefit of international students was estimated at £41.9 billion in 2021-22, up from £31.3 billion in 2018-19. This net contribution even accounted for an estimated £4.4 billion impact on public services. International student enrollments in UK higher education institutions rose by 12% in 2022-23 to 758,855, suggesting that the financial contribution of international students was higher still last year. Broader impacts on education and other sectors. The restrictive policies are affecting not only education providers, but also other sectors like tourism and hospitality that benefit from international students. The decline in student numbers is reminiscent of the COVID-19 pandemic's impact, when closed borders significantly reduced international student mobility. Education providers are facing reduced revenue and operational challenges, while industries that rely on the spending power of international students are also feeling the pinch. Strategies for mitigating negative impacts. To mitigate these impacts, education providers and governments need to adopt a proactive approach. Enhancing the study experience and student services, securing better accommodation, and improving graduate outcomes are crucial steps. Additionally, a balanced approach to immigration policies is essential, one that considers both the economic benefits of international students and the public's concerns about immigration. Conclusion. The challenges faced in international student recruitment during 2024 and 2025 are significant due to strict immigration policies and economic pressures. Despite this, stakeholders can overcome these obstacles and continue to attract and support international students by taking a balanced and proactive approach. The future of international education relies on the joint efforts of governments, educational institutions, and communities to create a welcoming and supportive environment for students worldwide. Expected improvements in the geopolitical landscape are predicted following major national elections in the USA, Canada, and Australia by the end of 2025. The UK currently enjoys a stable government. It is anticipated that there will be a positive change in global recruitment patterns by January 2026, after the majority of democratic elections worldwide are concluded by 2025. However, there is a word of caution regarding the progress of AI and automation. As advanced countries make rapid advancements in AI, AGI, and automation, future immigration policies may not see significant relaxation. Therefore, students aiming for higher education should carefully plan well in advance to avoid surprises.